Warm greetings from the High 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans, Tuesday, January 21st, 2020. Hello, ladies. How are you doing? I just wanted to have a little chit chat with you, ladies, for just a second. In the past day or two, I've discussed a situation about a older lady who's had a dilemma, the vanishing lady who's in South Africa at the current moment, trying to get home. And I decided to negotiate or help in some form or fashion. As I stated, I didn't know her personally, have met her in passing. But oh, so much I want to say. I reached out to my pastor who I spoke to this morning. He's going to speak to some ministries or whomever that can help with this type of scenario. And I don't know who he's reached out to as of yet, but I gave him the said information to confer with too. And then after I got off the phone with him, I talked to the certain person who had been relaying the said information to me, and something had just dawned on me. After I got off the phone with my pastor, I thought, I always say that whatever I need, information is in front of me. And I've said that to you guys when I talk about a certain case on this channel, that the information is there in front of you. You just have to decipher everything carefully and break it down, because the answer is in front of you. And the answer was there, and I knew the answer was there. Even about this situation that I'm talking about with you all, it dawned on me that if a person could stay gone a whole month, out of town, across the country, wherever, then they didn't have a full-time job. So what I had to ask myself was, then what are you living off of to be able to, one, stay gone from your employment for a whole month? Now, most people get a week to 2 weeks vacation time, depending on their position or job. So in my mind, I was sitting here thinking, this lady has to have other viable income to live off of to have funded the trip in the first place. So I went back to the source and said, does this person draw Social Security? She said yes. I said, and she also draws a veteran pay, because you told me she's a veteran. I did not relate it to you all because I just found that out this morning. So it was relayed to me today that the lady has a veteran pay from being a veteran, and she also draws Social Security and was working, I'm assuming, a job. I do not know if it was part-time, full-time, or whatever, but I think we now know it couldn't have been full-time, because what job would have let her off for an entire month? And now she's been gone a month and a half because she can't get back. So you see, I feel kind of like I should have never said anything to my pastor to go seek help or just see what he could do, because this lady has viable income. Now, mind you, she predated checks to pay her bills ahead of time for the month of January. So all those bills were paid. We are now in the middle, near the ending of January. So said bills have been paid. So one has to ask herself, if you had money to buy a one-way ticket to Africa, also pay your rent up, electric, whatever else you owe, we're talking about probably at least $1,500 or more dollars paid in full on your bills, depending what else she paid for. Why didn't you buy a round trip ticket? Is this just a ruse to get over there to see this man and then cry wolf, needing money to get back? Because you had to have known, as I stated, his finances. You knew his job. You knew where he lived. You had already been to Africa to see him beforehand. So you knew how he lived when you went the first time. Yet you carried your tail back over there again. And then you start calling around to your friends and family, telling them that you're stranded and that you're sickly and you don't feel well, and you knew you had health problems before you went. You knew your finances before you went. You knew his finances and how he lived, because you've been talking to this person and you've also been over to that country. And I also found out this morning that when she has a horrific or a life threatening event, such as the death of a father and then a aunt, that this is when she takes off to go see this man in Africa. First time she goes is when the aunt passed. Now she's gone because the father just been deceased about a month or so. And I understand grief affects everyone differently, but it should never cost you your livelihood nor your health, because people pass away every day. And we all know, as we have discussed on this channel, the things that people do when they grieve may not be things that we would agree with or contend with or do ourselves, but one will question your motives and your decision making. If it's appropriate behavior that you're exacting. So I'm giving you all the 411. This lady will be drawing money on the 1st of February, which is a veteran's pay and a Social Security check. So she should have money to at least buy a cheap one-way ticket back to the States. And I feel kind of foolish that I didn't ask all that before, because I felt like I was asking pertinent questions about her income and all that to the person who was relaying the information. And I think that's why the person wasn't really concerned about her rent, because they knew she was drawing a check and that her rent could be paid February. But why be concerned about rent paid when the person will not be living in the apartment or in the apartment? Don't you think the appropriate thing is to be concerned about the person making it back to the States and then worry about the rent later? Because why have organizations or people paying the rent on an apartment if the person is not even living in the apartment? They haven't even made it back to the States to reside in the apartment. So you can weigh this so many different ways. I thought the main concern would be getting the person back to the States and then they worry about their bills thereafter. I thought the sole concern would be worrying about them getting back. And so the person was letting me know, well, we're not worrying about the rent, none of that. And now I realize, I guess no one would be concerned about the rent, because you knew she drew money to pay the rent. She can get help from the Veteran Affairs to pay the rent. So why not take that same money that the Veterans Association will come up with and pay to get her a ticket back? But I guess maybe the Veteran Associations feel like that's not their responsibility, is to pay for someone's ticket back home because they fell in love and married a stranger, a foreigner. Our concern is for the welfare of their home, their livelihood, their living expenses, yeah. But we already know, will it really matter that you pay the rent in February, whomever, and the person's not even there to enjoy the comforts of the home? The visa will expire soon. This person thinks that they don't really want to get the loan from the embassy because they'll have to pay that money back. And then that leads me to think, well, then if you think that, and you think that's what she's thinking, because I didn't get that perception from the text messages, then that person doesn't really want to come home then. So I said, I need to reread those texts again. But do I really want to reread them? Because I think I'm kind of perturbed right now. Because now that I know the person draws Social Security and gets a veteran's pay, then they can buy their own ticket home the 1st of February. They can go buy a ticket online, because we all know that when you purchase airline tickets, you use a debit or credit card to purchase said tickets. And you don't need to exchange American money for foreign money when you want to buy a ticket. And I told the person that, and they were like, well, I don't know how it goes when you travel overseas as far as currency and this and that. I said, well, she doesn't have any money anyway to barter, to exchange with the African money. So she's trying to buy a ticket home so she can use her debit card. Once all her funds have been loaded onto her card, the 1st of the month, she can take her card and buy her a ticket home. So all this hoopla and raising sand and being concerned about her safety and her health really was all for nothing. Because I feel like this, now that I have all the information, she knew her situation before she went over there. She knew his situation before she went over there. She knew her health situation before she went over there. And she chose to go over there knowing all of these things beforehand. She also knew the dynamic she had with her family. She knew it was wrong to go over there not having a round trip ticket. She knew that they would react some type of way. She also had to have known her friends didn't have money to help get her back. So why in the hell did she go in the first place? You see, this is why it's best not to listen to other people spin webs about other people's problems. Because you get involved and it doesn't even concern you. It's none of your business. And then you try to offer places that they could possibly get help. But then you always have to ask yourself, who am I helping exactly? Do they really want help? They've done this before. This person is known to get themselves in financial binds, and the family has to get them out of the binds. Not saying that none of us have never had woes before, but when it's constant and it's expensive, it gets old, and then you become a burden to other people. And then they don't want to fool with you. Kind of like the little boy that cried wolf. Instead, it's the old lady that cried wolf in this story. You see, sometimes it's best to just be a listener to the story. You don't give advice. You don't render aid. You don't offer anything. You just listen. And then I thought about somebody else listening to their story today, and I realized that sometimes people tell you things, they don't want your advice. They just want to complain about what's wrong. And then you say something, then they feel some type of way. Okay? They're basically letting you know, oh, I got control of the situation. Don't worry about me. But you're complaining. And I'm sensing it in your voice. So I give my commentary, although, yes, you didn't ask me for it. And I heard someone once say that to me years ago. Just because a person tells you what they're going through does not mean they want your advice. They're just venting. But they really don't want you to give your input. And that is true. That is so true. And so I say that to you all. You don't want nobody giving you advice about your problems? Then don't talk about your problems. Because the average human will probably give a comment on what you're saying, whether you want to hear it or not. And if you don't want to hear commentary about what you're complaining about, then don't open your mouth. And don't tell your damn business. Yeah, I'm saying it. I realize, and I've said this to myself, I need to stop listening to other people talk about their problems. I don't need to hear people talk about somebody else's problems. I don't need to give input on where they should go to get help because I got my own problems. I may not have those problems, but I'm living and I go through things just like everybody else. And I realized after coming to that conclusion of knowing that this lady draws funds from Social Security and the veterans, being a veteran, and that she will have money on her card the 1st of February, she can bail her own self out of this mess that she got herself into by marrying this stranger, marrying this guy who's really actually old enough to be her grandson, mind you. Yeah, okay. Also listening to someone else cry and moan about their issues today, and they're acting and feeling some type of way about the things that I was saying, because, sometimes I can't come across as brash. I don't mean no harm. But if I'm listening to the way you're talking and speaking, then maybe I'm getting a feeling from you that maybe you're indecisive, or maybe you're going through something and maybe you're not sure about the decisions that you're wanting to make or have decided to make. So I'm just saying to you that where you're going, that perhaps that attitude you're carrying with you, your demeanor may come across as that you are not sure about what you're trying to proceed in doing. I didn't mean any harm. And that's when it dawned on me. Don't listen to nobody else's BS. Nobody else's problems. Don't listen at it. Don't ask about it. Don't worry about it. Because I got my own life to live. And I'm not trying to seem facetious or mean, but I feel like maybe I went in over my head by asking my pastor to reach out to other organizations to help. And I did leave him a message. Once I sat and processed everything and let him know, hey, it's up to you what you decide to do, Pastor, but she gets money on the 1st of February, and I think she'll have enough money on her debit, credit card, whatever, to buy her a ticket back. Even if that means she'll be broke once she returns, but she can worry about that later and seek, help from the Veterans Affairs or whomever when she gets back to the States. Because as I stated, I didn't know all of her income. But now today, it has been verified. She does have said income. So on the 1st of the month of February, she can take that said income and buy her own ticket back. I thank you guys for listening to me. Thanks for being concerned about somebody who, hell, I barely knew myself. And as you see, that sometimes it's best to get all the information before worrying about other people's troubles and problems. And there's nothing wrong with being concerned about mankind, womankind, but sometimes you have to know when to just nod your head and be a spectator and not a participator. Thanks, you guys. Like and share. Drop your comments below. Thanks for joining me. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.